you could look at the start of the season and the fact that the Eagles weren't anywhere near as good wins and loss-wise in the first half as they were to the second half and go, well, that's why, because they didn't put enough practice. That's why they started slow. Well, that would be unfair because their schedule was tougher at the start of the year as compared to the second half. They made a very significant decision in season to run the football rather than throw it as much as they tried to do in the first couple of weeks of the season, and I think that played in. We're never going to have the perfect answer. It's going to be McDonald's opinion, McMullen's opinion, the Eagles' opinion, any of our streamers' opinions. There's no additional facts you can add, statistics you can look up to prove the theory or disprove the theory that less practice in the spring makes for better results in the fall. John McMullen and Jody McDonald, a.k.a. your Mac and Mac Birds 365 guys here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, which you can easily access from JAKIBSports.com, our new all-inclusive website where you can get on any of the JAKIB Media channels. You can find the musings of one John McMullen as the lead.
Too many musings, yeah. Yeah, people are going to get mad at me for that Deshaun Watson stuff, Jody. Watch.
That's all right. They can get mad at me too. When certain things, you are an actual hands-on reporter. I'm just an on-air opinion giver. When information comes out, you react to it. Hey, you're not going to agree with everybody all of the time. You're going to have some people agree and others disagree with you. That's okay. That's what we do. I need your opinion on what you're going to be able to see today at the final Eagles OTA practice. 3 last week, 3 this week. Shut it down. And even though they've got upwards of 2 hours that they can spend today, just judging from afar, I'm not expecting them to be on the field anywhere near 2 hours. Usually last day, using your Alice Cooper reference again, school's out for summer. You want that last day to be shortened so you can get out and start to enjoy your downtime.
You know, the kids get antsy. They don't want to pay attention on the last day of school. So generally you break early. And like I said, usually around the rest of the NFL where they have mini camps and you see them, even Aaron Rodgers was in mandatory mini camp in Green Bay. By the way, did you hear Aaron talk about chemistry? And he basically shut that down. That was great too, by the way.
At least he committed to the Packers. He's going to finish his career now in Green Bay. He only took $150 million over 3 years to get him to commit, but he is now committed to finishing his career in Green Bay.
Yeah, but he's not going to show up for voluntary work ever. That's pretty clear. If he didn't do it this year, he's never going to do it. But getting back to the original point, I mean, usually people just scrap the last day because they've gone 12 practices and they've stretched it to the limit, and they say, all right, let's let the guys out of here. And there was some debate whether the Eagles would do that, and we talked about it on the show, and it's like, they can't do that. I mean, they only did 6. They got to go. They got to do it. Sure enough, they are going full, put that in quotations, on Wednesday. But I don't know. Like I said, Zach Berman was on the show. I think he put it was a great number, so I'll steal it from him. I don't think it matters for, say, 1 through 40. I think it matters for the rest of the players. And I think it should matter for the Eagles more. But they are where they are, and they made that cost-benefit analysis. You and I are both a little bit more old school. I think if we're up to Nick Sirianni, I think they'd be out there using 13 practices, to be honest. But it's not. And maybe it will be someday, but it's not right now.
And we'll only be able to judge when the season comes and goes as to how effective it was. Last year, I would say it was probably, and they did a little bit more than it looks like they're going to do during this offseason, comping one offseason to the other. You could look at the start of the season and the fact that the Eagles weren't anywhere near as good wins and loss wise in the first half as they were to the second half and go, well, that's why, because they didn't put enough practice. That's why they started slow. Well, that would be unfair because their schedule was tougher at the start of the year as compared to the second half. They made a very significant decision in season to run the football rather than throw it as much as they tried to do in the first couple of weeks of the season. And I think that played into. We're never going to have the perfect answer. It's going to be McDonald's opinion, McMullen's opinion, the Eagles' opinion, any of our streamers' opinions. There's no additional facts you can add, statistic you can look up to prove the theory or disprove the theory that less practice in the spring makes for better results in the fall.
And I don't think you're ever going to have that information, but then they're chasing it. They think they can find it. And the Eagles aren't the only ones. Sometimes you got to be smart enough to know what you can't know. You know, that's the old coach's cliche, right? Control what you can control. I don't think you can control injuries. I say it all the time. I don't think you can legislate injuries. Where you can get better is treatment of injuries. And maybe that's where Arstenoda has made the greatest impact on this team. And, you know, I was talking to somebody in the organization who said, look, for years and years and years, when they were talking up ours, for years, you know, NFL teams and still some NFL teams, basically they had a head trainer, right? And the head trainer was a head, you know, oh, what's that? A strained groin? That's a 4-week injury. That's a 6-week injury. They're not doctors. I mean, a lot of them go through these certifications and to be, you know, very well versed on game day treatment of players and all that kind of stuff, but they're not doctors. And every injury is different. Hamstring for Jody McDonald maybe isn't the same for John McMullen. And then there's grades. There's grade 1 and grade 2 and grade 3. There's different types of hamstring strains and different type. That's where a doctor's expertise is needed. So that's where the Eagles are probably a little bit ahead of the curve to have a chief medical officer who's now in control of basically the entire medical outfit, the doctors, the orthopedics. He's got experience in that. Internal medicine, plus all the training capabilities. Where back in the old days, and still for many teams, and people remember Rick Burkhalter and all those guys, it was the trainer. And from that instance, didn't make a lot of sense.
A hamstring injury for yours truly these days would certainly be career threatening, maybe life threatening if I got a severe enough hamstring injury. All right, J Mac, hopefully no hamstring injuries today. You saw what they called the practice last week. Don't know if it's going to be even more or less again this week. What did you see last week? Do you think this is going to be identical, very similar? Will they be attempting to put stuff in that they can just pick up and restart when the camp starts in July? What do you think you're going to get out there on the field from the Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, very similar individuals. Anybody who's been to any football practice starts with that, and then you move into sort of in this part of it is going to be what I'll call teamwork, and that's the 7-on-7. In between, you sort of have 10 minutes with Michael Clay and special teams. But this team does what it does. I think if they push it to over an hour, that would surprise me. They're more about the classroom and film work and that kind of stuff right now. So, but we'll see some 7-on-7s, and you'll hear about Jalen Hurts throwing the ball deep to AJ and Devontae, and everybody will get excited.
Maybe another Deion Kane day. You mentioned the 10 minutes with Michael Clay with special teams. Aaron Sipa still the only punter, right?
Yeah. It is a position where you can bring people in. The Eagles have talked about this in the past about not having day-to-day competition. I asked Michael that actually when we talked to him last week, his sort of theory on that. Um, because it is a position where, look, if Aaron Cepas just craps the bed in training camp, you can call somebody up and bring a punter and have him there the next day, and it's not like he's got to learn a new system. Punter's a punter. Um, are they good at directional kicking? How strong is their leg? Can they flip the field? All that kind of stuff. It's not a position you have to worry about, so you can just bring somebody in. Um, but there's also the talk of, it makes you better to have somebody there pushing you every day, right next to you, instead of in Cleveland or Detroit and Aaron Cepas himself was in Detroit in training camp against Jack Fox, who was the best punter in the NFL that year. And he actually, when he talked to us, he said how much that helped him to be with Fox every single day. So if I were the Eagles, I'd have another punter in here. But that's, going back to Dave Bipp, that's what they've always believed is if something happens, we'll just bring a guy in.
And again, this is just 10 minutes as they had last time. You expect the same, working on the special teams, kickoffs, and punts. I know that Britton Colby was a guy that they brought in as an undrafted free agent, and he put up some pretty good numbers collegiately at returns. But as I look at the Eagle roster and trying to find a path that Britton Covey makes it, I'm not sure that I do. That the Eagles have enough guys at the wide receiver position. They're going to cut a guy like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who is going to be a difficult cut because he was as high a draft pick as he was. If not Kobe, then who? Are we looking at the same exact lineup as last year? Is there some other direction they could be going, John, on returns? Or do you think because it wasn't good enough last year and needs improvement, that they are going to find a roster spot for a guy like Kobe?
He's a long shot. I mean, I could see him making the practice squad
Right.
easily.
I'm not asking about the
Yeah.
practice squad here. I'm
No,
talking about first week of the
no,
season.
no.
Somebody's got to drop back for a kick and a punt for the Eagles. Who the hell's it going to be?
I'd bet on Jalen Rager. I mean, we kept asking Michael Clay about that, and we asked him about Devin Allen, the Olympic hurdle, and he's like, Devin Allen hasn't played since 2016, and he's still not in here because he's still dealing with track season. So he's another guy. Their goal with him is to get him on the practice squad and see if he has anything, and maybe 2 years down the road, maybe he turns into something. Britton Kobe, we asked him about Britton. It's like, yeah, and he kept going back to Jalen Rager, Jalen Rager, Jalen Rager. Now, special teams coaches in general, they're at the mercy of really, what the final 53 is going to be.
Right.
Yeah. And if the Eagles, take a turn or trade him, cut him, which I don't think they're going to cut him, then he might have to go in a different direction. Then you start going into the Boston Scotts, Kenny Gainwells, Quez Watkins as a kickoff returner, punt returner. Yeah, that would be a big concern because they don't have a next obvious punt returner other than Kobe, who did it in college. And they would have to find something. Obviously, punt returner is probably more important than kick returner. But I will say, as much as people killed Jalen Rager, rightfully so, and especially Muff 2 in the Tampa Bay game, so that's your last result. He was their best returner by far. I mean, Watkins was awful at it. Awful. People forget he started the season as a kickoff returner, and Jalen was the punt returner. And Quez was just really bad at it. And then they gave him both to Jalen Rager. And he made some mistakes, and he popped a couple. He popped a kick return, I think 40 yards, 33-yard punt return. showed a little bit of juice, but man, ball security is number one. You gotta secure the ball before you do anything else. And right now, the Eagles, it's one of those underreported needs, but they don't have good returners.
They don't.
They don't have good special teams.
That's why I asked you the question.
Yeah.
And you're saying they'll dedicate 10 whole minutes to it today. Way to go, guys. Commitment. That'll get it done. One name you did throw out there was Kenneth Gainwell, who didn't really have that many opportunities. Kickoff returns are so few and far between in the NFL anymore with kickers' ability to just boot it out of the back end of the end zone, get it started at the 25. Do you think they look at Gainwell as a guy who might be too important to their overall offense coming into the season to risk putting out there on special teams and potentially getting him hurt?
Yeah, certainly early too. Because early, I think they're going into it with the same thing they did last year. If you remember, they started, it was really two men. It was Miles and Kenny Gainwell. And that it's going to be the same way in the backfield to start. Miles is obviously the lead back, and Kenny Gainwell is going to be the third down back and hurry up back. And really, they hope he's going to take a huge step forward, more as a pass receiver than anything. So yeah, I think he would be behind. They're going to try Rager. They're going to try Boston Scott. And then before you get down to Kenny Gainwell. And by that point, if Zach Pascal becomes more of a part of the offense, you might even try Quez before Kenny Gainwell. Because, and I've kind of, I think Kenny Gainwell's more entrenched with the offense than Quez Watkins. I really believe that. Because I think in Quez, I think somebody's pushing Quez. I don't think anybody is pushing Kenny Gainwell.
And one of our stream commenters was thinking right along the same lines that I was. I was going to ask you about Jason Hunley, who I think shows the talents and the skills that he might be a good enough returner. But again, Jason Hunley's only going to get activated on a week where either Miles or Kenny Gainwell and or Boston Scott is hurt. Otherwise, I don't think he's going to get activated.
And he's not a punt returner. I should have mentioned him on kickoff returns because he might be their best kickoff returner. But again, how do you get him on the field? I don't know how you get him on the field. Now injuries, then you don't want him on. It's not one of those things where you're hoping for it, because kickoff return is not that valuable. And I would just, to be honest, I would just stick Boston back there. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be explosive, but he's not going to make mistakes. And it's not that big of a deal in the modern NFL. But yeah, their best pure kickoff returner, at least until Devin Allen shows up or Britton Covey does something, is Jason Huntley. But how do you get him on the field?
He's got to be one of the 53, and I'm not sure there's a path for that. I know where our path takes us next. McMullen, McDonald, coming up next. The cynic himself, Bob Groats from the Delco Times, joins us here on Birds 365.